guys hear me okay? All right, looks like we are live on Facebook as well. Welcome, everyone. So, tonight's topic is we're going to be talking about how to deal with a bad attitude, and we're going to do this twofold. So, being able to deal with a bad attitude when it's coming at you, and when you yourself have a bad attitude. I know, we're all perfect. We don't feel this way, but this is the case, and we are going to address these issues. So, let me just Sorry, I had to adjust the table. All right. Oh, wow, look at those tan lines. Getting a little bit of sun now. So if this is your first time joining me, my name is Tina. I am a happiness coach and I help people deal with feelings of depression, anxiety, frustration, dark thoughts, any of that kind of stuff, and move you to a happier place. So tonight's topic is dealing with a bad attitude. And how do you deal with that? And even when you yourself are in that space, I know myself, I have gotten into that space. Sometimes I can end up being cranky and irritable. I have a bad attitude. I know it. Being aware of it isn't enough to actually change it. And knowing what it is, recognizing the signs, and how to move through that, and how to deal with that when you have maybe somebody on your team that has that bad attitude, and deal with it in a way that is constructive, helpful, and allows room for people's emotions to be able to process those in a healthy way and deal with this in a really good way that is beneficial to both of you, that allows for other people's emotions and to be able to move through those in a way that is constructive. Okay, so first, let's start by identifying some of the signs that somebody might have a bad attitude, and you're like, Tina, you know what? I know what a bad attitude is, and it's their fault, their problem. You know, they shouldn't have that bad attitude. Any of those kind of things are not actually going to be helpful or constructive. So we need to first identify some of the signs. Okay. So the first sign would be somebody who, now this doesn't necessarily, can you guys see that okay? It's a little bit light. Hey Pearson, welcome. So, not sure if you guys can see it okay, but if somebody is angry or fighting, they're like arguing and stuff like that, those are signs that somebody might have a bad attitude. Okay? Not always, but that could be one of the early signs. Okay? Somebody who is defensive. Okay? They're like, well, I didn't do that. That's not my job. Why are you asking me? Any of those kind of things. If you, I don't think she should be talking about this on live. I'm curious, why would you say that, Michael? Please, I invite you to explain why you don't think this is a good topic on live. So while we're waiting for Michael to type out his answers, then we can continue on. So being defensive means they get their walls up, they get their back up, lives are upbeat and positive, are they? Okay, well, I respect your opinion. That is not the case. And if you stay long enough, we will be talking about the positive side. But we also need to understand when people are in these defensive, bad attitude kind of situations and how to get to a happier place. So stick around, Michael. You're going to learn some things and hopefully they'll pick up something that you can actually apply to your life and make it useful. Okay? So being defensive, being uncooperative, somebody who doesn't listen, doesn't want to, you know, toe the company line or whatever it is that they are, eh, being resistant. They kind of go wet noodle-ish and they're not being a team player kind of thing. So they're being uncooperative. And sometimes that can be deliberately uncooperative. So they could be even bordering on sabotage, right? So, cynical and pessimistic. So they don't think that things should be being done the way that they're being done. They are, um, skeptical that the solutions that are being offered, the ideas that are being put forward are not actually beneficial and therefore should not be done. If they are just not sure, I don't know, I don't think I like that, but they can't really give you a reason why. They might be bordering on some of the bad attitude stuff, right? Five, constant complaining. So they might be complaining about other teams, other people, other situations, all of that kind of stuff, and they aren't really wanting to offer any solutions. They're just identifying a lot of different problems and not really being productive about it. Um, so, what I want as we're going through these things and identifying the areas where people might have a bad attitude, I want you to hold off the judgment part because we are going to get to the part where we are going to offer solutions. We're going to go through what the 5 A's are so that you can actually solve these challenges and do it in a way that is constructive for both parties and helps move that person that is experiencing that bad attitude into a happier state where they do want to collaborate, where they do want to look for solutions, and they aren't just complaining. They feel empowered to actually change the situation. So constant complaining. One expression too that always used to be my favorite. So if somebody's in that whining mode, right, where they just whine about every little thing, that is anger escaping through a very small hole. Notice it always sounds like a balloon when you're letting the air out of it and you squeeze it real tight, and it's like really high pitched squeal. Wee, 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 right? That is the the angry bad attitude. Six, they're never happy. Doesn't matter what situation you put in front of them, what solution, what offer you have, they're never happy. They have this bad attitude mentality. Okay? Um, Everything's always a problem. I don't know if we can do that. No, that's not a good idea. That's going to be a problem. This, that, and the other thing, right? So please don't get this confused with somebody who is bringing up issues that do actually need to be addressed. And even the way that this is delivered doesn't mean that the person is wrong. It just means that they have emotions around this and we need to help them process the emotions around it. Okay? So Eeyore mindset. You know, so Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore, the little donkey, there's like, everything's a gray cloud and nothing's ever good and nothing's ever, positive. It's always negative, and it's like, oh, we'll wait and see. And it's just like Debbie Downer kind of stuff, right? So 9, they're dismissive of solutions. Anytime you try to bring something up and you try to get them to look on the bright side, they have a bad attitude with it. They're like, nope, I don't care, don't want to hear it, get away from me, leave me alone, all of that kind of stuff. So dismissive with solutions and closed off to new ideas. So when you try to offer something different, a different perspective, a different way of looking at things, they just don't want to hear it, and they're just like meh, right? And they cross their arms, they got body language stuff. They're like, no, I don't want to deal with this. Leave me alone, right? And how many times have we ourselves gotten into that kind of situation where we're like, you know what? I don't want to hear it. I don't care. Leave me alone. Go away. All of that kind of stuff. It's like pushing away any possible solutions, any positive reinforcement. So when you get this kind of stuff, what you need to understand is that person is in a state of fear. Okay, so if this is your first time joining me, I've talked about this quite a few different times. There is love and there is fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real. Love is the only thing that's real. So everything is either an expression of or cry for love. So when we look at it through that lens, right? It's like, okay, if it is not an expression of love, of cooperation, willingness, contribution, all of those kind of things, it is a state of fear. So they are in an illusion, and we have to help them out of the illusion that they don't have to be afraid. And the worst thing that we could do is start going down this path ourselves, where we start buying into it, and we start believing their reality instead of them believing our reality of a positive mindset, of a positive solution, can do kind of attitude, right? So being able to do that, but we also have to allow space for their feelings, because whatever's coming up for them is meant for them to come up. Those emotions are meant to come up for them, so that they can learn something about themselves, they can grow to a new level. So it's not that we want to squish the feelings down. That is not the right process. We want to allow some space, and not blame or shame that person for being in that state, but more seeking to understand and being curious as to what is the real problem that is going on, right? And maybe it's got nothing to do with the situation that you're actually dealing with. Maybe they've got a few different things. I've talked about this before: halt, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or sick. If there are any of those five things, then halt the progress, halt what's going on. That is your sign to take a step back and review the situation with a clearer mind, right? So let's see, the 5 A's to dealing with bad attitudes. We're going to come over here so the TikTok people can see. There we go. Everybody, it's all good? Okay. So number one, we have to acknowledge how the person is feeling, right? What emotions they are displaying. Hey, Joe, I see that you're really angry and you're arguing with John. What's going on, right? So it's acknowledging the behavior that you're seeing, and without blame, without shame, without being punitive, but more from a perspective of concern that this isn't their normal state of being. Even if it is, even if they're 90% of the time they're in Eeyore mindset, if they're in this state, you also want to, hey, Deloya one, nice to see you. So even if they are in this state, we want to come from the perspective of, hey, if this person was happy, if they were feeling good, we're talking about how to deal with a bad attitude, and we've gone over what the symptoms are of a bad attitude, what kind of signs. And then now we're on to the solutions of how to deal with it. And there's 5 A's on how to deal with a bad attitude. Okay. So acknowledging the behavior, acknowledging what it is you're seeing without being punitive, without being more kind of from a curiosity, hey, this isn't your normal state of being. Like, what's going on? Oh, is it still backwards? Oh, hang on just a sec here, guys. There we go. Is that better? I went all the way through. All right. Yes, you can come every night and I will be your teacher. All right. So acknowledge, right? Acknowledge what is the problem. This isn't their normal way of being, and giving them the benefit of the doubt. Even if you yourself are kind of like, oh, again, I got to deal with this. Trust me, even ourselves, we get our own bad attitudes, and these are the same processes that we would do with ourselves when we see that we're in this mode of just being irritable and unreasonable, or like my family members would sometimes say, you're like a bear with a sore ass, right? So walk away from a bad attitude. Yes, but you also don't want to destroy the relationship. You want to acknowledge what's going on. You give them space for their feelings. And just because they have the bad attitude, because the bad attitude, you can't always walk away from it. Sometimes it's your boss that has the bad attitude. Sometimes it's your wife that has the bad attitude. Sometimes it's your kids. Sometimes it's a family member, right? So you don't always have the option to walk away. And I wouldn't always say that that is the best route. Okay, so sometimes you have to allow space for their emotions because let's face it, guys, we're all human. We're all going to have some bad days where we're not feeling our best self. We're going to look at things through a skewed lens and we're going to end up, being a bit cranky, irritable, unreasonable. We all go through this. And not punishing somebody for feeling a certain way. Now, we can hold them accountable for their behaviors. They're not allowed to be destructive, but they are allowed to have their feelings. So we acknowledge the feelings, the behaviors that we see. If there's something that needs to be put to a stop immediately, of course, we say that. Um, Yes, but the fact of the matter is really trying to understand why they have that bad attitude because you can be the catalyst to help change them and shift their perspective rather than just writing them off that they're a lost cause because nothing will increase a bad attitude than treating somebody like they're a lost cause. And we all have the capacity to be able to do this because we all do it when it is like, our customer, and that customer might be able to give us some money. So now we have to, you know, be nice and be positive and try to figure out what their problem is and try to solve it. Now, sometimes if they are behaving in unacceptable manners, obviously if there's violence or they're like talking negatively towards you, you have to stop some of the behavior and but you still have to start with acknowledging what it is that you're saying. And then the next step is we're going to accept that that is how they're behaving. Now, we're not saying that it's okay to behave that way, but we're accepting that they are not in operating in their best selves. Okay? We also know that they have a better version of themselves. If that person was happy, they would not be in this miserable state. They would not have this bad attitude. And what we have to do is look at it. They are operating from a state of fear. And if they're operating from a state of fear, then they are crying out for love. They are crying out for support. And now, it may not be our responsibility, but we can support them by allowing them to have some room for their emotions, accepting what's going on, acknowledging what they're doing. So, example would be, um, hey John, I understand that you have been fighting with Joe. Can you help me understand what's going on? And really learning and listening what is going on with him because you have to take the assume positive intent that he's not fighting just for the sake of fighting, that that's not his normal behavior. You wouldn't have him on your team. You wouldn't have hired him if he had, no redeeming qualities. So you have to look at it through the lens of this is a good person, this is my employee, this is a good worker, and most of the time they're in a good space. Now, maybe they're cranky and they're a little bit more curmudgeonly, and that might be their personality style. However, if they're able to do good work and they're now acting out of character, we have to assume that there's something going on, and it's really coming from that frame of being patient and understanding, yes. So it's more a perspective, right? Because if that person, when you truly understand what is behind their bad attitude, I can promise you that there's some sort of fear going on. Maybe they're afraid they're not going to get something done on time. Maybe they're like, I always end up having to do all of the work, or and helping them shift that perspective to see what is the true problem and being able to help them solve that. So being non-reactive to it. So think of it like, can you give me an example of times where you've had a bad attitude? And don't say that you haven't had one because I'll know that you're lying. We've all had times where we've had a bad attitude. And it's usually because we are seeing things from a skewed perspective. We have assumptions that we're making about the situations, which may or may not be true. And being able to clarify that stuff and being able to get to the root cause of what the true problem is how we solve that. Okay. Okay, Alex, you're in the wrong group. Okay. There we go. All right. So acknowledge, accept. Then number three, we're going to assess the situation. Is um, so we're going to assess the situation of what is going on with them. Do they need to be stopped in some of their behaviors? Is this something that is um, damaging? Do they need a timeout? Do they need to go walk it off? Do they need some cool down time? Do they need to be listened to and heard of? Do we need to take something off of their plate so that they're not so stressed and feeling so negatively about the situation? It's about understanding what is going on. We're really assessing the situation. We're going to assess ourselves too. Where are we at? How are we feeling? And how are they feeling? Because we need to address the emotions, because somebody with a bad attitude, it's more emotion based rather than fact based. And then when they feel heard, when they feel understood, that will diffuse the situation, help them diffuse the emotions, and help them see things from a more logical perspective, and they will get back on track willingly without being forced. You don't have to beat them down and going, you have a bad attitude, I can't take this anymore, blah 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 blah. Like if you're going that way, you're already starting down the path of bad attitude, right? Because you have to keep in mind, it's not just the person that you're dealing with, everybody else around you is watching how you handle those situations. And you can be causing damage by reacting badly to a bad attitude. Okay? So assess the situation, understand where are you at emotionally, where are they at emotionally, and know that if somebody has a bad attitude, it's an emotional issue, which means it's not going to be logical. It is going to be emotional. It's going to be chaotic, but it's a matter of helping that person feel heard and understood by listening to what is going on with them from a non-judgmental perspective. Okay? Then we're going to offer, once we understand what the situation is, we're going to offer some sort of assistance. We're going to offer some sort of tools of something to help them solve the problem, right? Of what it is that they're going through. And maybe they're frustrated because their system hasn't been working and they've been trying to get help with it, but IT never fixed the problem or something like that. And so now they have a negative attitude because they feel like their problems are not important. So they get defensive, they get angry about it, they get irritable, they become unreasonable. And if they have had past trauma, they might be looking at things through a previous lens. So maybe 20% of the emotional upset is coming from what is actually occurring today. And 80% is coming from a past situation, whether that's a past work environment where, that IT department never solved the problem and treated them like they were never okay. Maybe it's another coworker or another perspective of something that has happened someplace else. So it doesn't have to be like big T trauma. It can be, just challenges that somebody else has gone through. Maybe any time that they've spoke up before, they got shot down, that their ideas weren't valued, and they might be filtering everything through that lens and behaving the same way, even though this particular situation doesn't warrant it. So by listening, taking the time to listen and truly understand, then we can reassure and we can offer assistance by providing them examples of and proof that that is not the case for this situation. If they're and we address the issue, right? So we have to offer some sort of assistance, whatever that may be looking like. Maybe they are overworked and maybe they do need some things taken off. Maybe they are feeling scared about being able to hit a particular deadline and they're just reacting through anxiousness, and it's coming off as they have a bad attitude, that they're defensive and they're uncooperative and but they don't know how to speak up for what it is that they need. So it's truly understanding what's going on. And if you are in a leadership position, then you are the voice of calm, you are the voice of reason, you are the one that is able to help them manage their emotions because they are going to follow your lead. So if you get bent out of shape about it, then they're going to feel justified in behaving the way that they are behaving. So number 5 is action. So then you put in a plan of action. What is it that you are going to do? What is it that they are going to do differently to help? Because the bad attitude is coming from that they feel powerless, that they are unable to change something. So by going through this process, truly understanding, acknowledging their feelings, accepting what's going on, assessing the situation, offering assistance, and then taking action. And I can promise you this has helped not only in my personal life, even when I get a bad attitude, I understand what's going on with me. And I've used this over the many years that I've done customer service. And there are some people that come at you guns a-blazing. They have a completely bad attitude. They maybe talk down to you because they feel that they can, kind of thing. So like that was much more in my early years when I was working in corporate and transport and logistics. Did 10 years of customer service and learning how to diffuse the situation, learning how to mitigate those bad attitudes, those challenging behaviors, those angry customers, and it has nothing to do with me. So that's the thing, is understanding that it's not a personal attack. So when we always take it from that perspective, and we can only do that if we have done our own inner work, if we are good with our own emotions, and if they do trigger a reaction in us, that is a cue for us to clue in to what is going on with us, because now they've triggered a fear reaction within us. And understanding that we actually need some support. So taking that time to step back and assess, what is it that I'm afraid of? What did they trigger here? Where is this coming from? All of those kind of things. You say actions by asking the person, why do you have a bad attitude? No, no, I wouldn't say, because labeling it as a bad attitude is a judgment, right? So by doing that, that automatically, if somebody comes up to you and maybe you're upset about something and they're like, oh, you have a bad attitude, what's the first thing that's going to happen? You're going to feel like your feelings have just been invalidated. You're going to become defensive. You're going to become upset. Hey, Alfred, good to see you. You're going to become angry with that. And you're going to end up fighting about the validity of your emotions because you just now don't feel heard. Would that not be the case? Or correct me if I'm wrong. So what you would do is, hey, John, I see that you're really upset. You're really angry. Is everything okay? You're assuming that this is not their normal state. So it's coming from a place of concern and willingness to help them through this, and not from a place of punishment that they need to be beaten down, right? So that is kind of the situation that you want to address it from, right? I'm happy we're best friends. Go for sushi. Oh, you can have all the sushi, hun. No, I'm not a sushi girl. I'm a steak and salad girl. No, sushi. I might try the veggie ones. I'll be adventurous, right? So I won't be completely uncooperative. So that is Dairy Queen. That's quite a switch. So that is how to deal with a bad attitude, and how to use the 5 A's: acknowledge, accept, assess the situation, offer assistance, and take action to be able to help solve the problems, right? If you acknowledge their feelings, bad attitude, what's next? Okay, so you're not going to call it a bad attitude. You're going to say, hey, John, I see that you seem resistant to the solutions that we're providing. Can you help me understand what's going on here? And so you're trying to switch it so that they feel that you guys are on the same team. It's not an us against them, you against me kind of situation. It's like you're coming from a place of like, hey, no different than if, say, your kid acts up and they're normally a happy go lucky kind of kid, and all of a sudden they're sullen, they're irritable, and it's like, hey, what's going on, right? You're not just going to write them off. You have a bad attitude, get out of my life, right? You can't do that. So you come from it from the same perspective of understanding, okay, I see you're upset about this particular thing, or I see that you're not really happy with the solutions that we're providing. Can you help me understand what's going on? And really listen to what it is that they bring up so that you are truly understanding from a place of care, concern, offering assistance, right? You're not coming at it from, because when you call something, it's like you have a bad attitude. What you're saying is that you are a problem for me and I need you to stop. And that completely invalidates the emotional component of what is going on. And it's really through understanding. And now you are allowed to have your feelings as well. So you have to understand what it is that's going on for you. So if you're like, you have a bad attitude, you're a problem, and I need you to stop, you need to be more specific of what it is that is upsetting you, right? Why do you feel that they have a bad attitude? So you're going to acknowledge that you are upset with this situation, that their behavior is triggering fear in you. And when I say fear, it's anger is the first stage of fear. Okay. Number 4 is offering assistance. So offering assistance is by, once you assess the situation and you truly understand, and it's like, you know what? Yeah, I have a bad attitude because I can't get my friggin' laptop to work. IT isn't helping me, blah, 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 whatever it is. And you're like, okay, and say you're the manager of the department, you're like, okay, you can offer them a solution by saying, hey, you know what, I want you to call this guy, I want you to call Bob, he's going to help you out. Or you know what, I'm going to call and I'll get this taken care of for you because I need you to be able to access your laptop and get the work done that I need done, right? So you're going to offer assistance. And I can promise you, when you solve their problem, their bad attitude's going to go away, right? Now, they might still be a little bit miffed about it, but that will die down, especially when they see that consistently you're going through this process, that you're acknowledging their emotions, you're accepting that they're feeling upset. You're not trying to say that they are the problem, they are the ones with the bad attitude. It's really, it takes time. Yes, it does. But at the same time, what kind of time is it going to take you if you consistently view this person as a bad attitude, that they have a bad attitude, they're a problem, they're a pain in your ass, and you start treating them that way? That's gonna reinforce their bad attitude, and then eventually either they're gonna leave or you're gonna have to fire them, and that is a long process to go through. And then you're gonna have to replace somebody else. And you might think, oh, it's okay, but if you haven't learned to address those problems, then if somebody else might come on new and they're good, but then you end up finding out that the thing that the other person was complaining about is still a problem. That never got solved. And guess what? You're still going to have to do it, but now this new person's going to bring it up. And now that it's coming around the second time around, you're a little bit more willing to listen, willing to assess the situation. So truly understanding what is the problem, and taking principles above personalities. Just because we don't like the way somebody has brought up the problem doesn't mean that the problem is invalid. And really getting to the root, because sometimes people also, they don't identify the correct problem. They might be complaining about something that is completely irrelevant, and when you start digging down, you realize the truth of what's going on, and now you can solve that problem because they only know what they know. And oftentimes when they're complaining about something is they don't know that there's another way to solve the problem. So as leaders, it's incumbent on us to show them the way, to guide them, to help them through this. No different than as a parent, right? As a parent, you have to stay calm. The kid is irrational, they're emotional, they don't have the logical capacity that we do as adults. So it is on us to help them regulate their emotions and help them calm down. And I know you think that you shouldn't have to do this in a work environment, but I can promise you at some level you do. And it doesn't matter if that is your employee and you might be, well, we have all kinds of procedures and we have SOPs and they should be following these things. And you can go through that stuff. You can be right or you can be happy. And I can promise you, if you help your employees get to a happier state, they are going to be much more productive. They are going to move forward in a way that you don't have to stay on them. They're going to do that of their own accord. Why? Because you made them feel valuable. You took the time to understand what is truly wrong and help them solve their problem rather than treating them as the problem. If somebody has a bad attitude, it's really a matter of understanding what the problem is. And oftentimes, I know I've done this myself, is sometimes they bring up stuff that you know is 100% true, but with the company that you're at, you can't actually change the problem that they're bringing up. And I hated when I couldn't do that. And I've been on both sides of the fence of that. There was a time where I had started a job, um, and it was for 20 grand a year, less than what I was making. And it was just something I needed to take at the time. And of course, it was a job that was below my skills, below my capabilities, so I could do it blindfolded, backwards. And it was so easy for me. So not only did I do that job, but I took on other roles and responsibilities of the skill sets that I actually had. And my boss, she loved me and she wanted to reward me, but there was corporate policies saying that you could only get certain amount of increases. And even if you got promoted to another position with more responsibilities, there was still restrictions of how much you could go up in income. So she knew that she got me at a steal of a deal. And she fought and fought and fought and tried whatever she could to try and get more income for me, but it wasn't to be. And then when she went on maternity leave, she was the only one that I really, really enjoyed working with. So I was like, fuck this shit, I'm out. And I went and got another job for that extra money. And then I came back when she came back from maternity leave. And because I had left the company and I was starting new, she could get me the income that she knew I was more than deserving of. And so because of that, that is one of the things. So I did start to develop a little bit of a bad attitude because my problem wasn't being solved and there was no solution to it. And it wasn't because I was a bad worker. I was upset at the fact that the problem was not getting solved. And it didn't matter. And I was getting year after year exceptional performance reviews, of course, because I was in a position that was too low for my skill sets. And when I came back, it was now appropriately matched and was much, much better, right? When bigger context is used as a distraction instead of helping. How do you keep subjects to one instance instead of letting them spiral into when a bigger context is used? So is that like when somebody goes off topic and they start asking about or bringing in a whole bunch of different things? Is that what you're talking about, Jesse? Of like, when somebody argues and it's like say, I'll give a husband and a wife example. Say you're arguing about house cleaning, all right? And then the wife brings up something about, well, you were late and you didn't come in, and they bring in a completely separate topic, or it's something about the kids and that kind of stuff. So bringing it back to the situation and saying, I understand what you're talking about there. We're going to come back to that subject. We're going to focus on this right now, and I really need to understand why the dishes didn't get done, right? Or because it's not like you. Normally you're good with this, so I want to understand what's going on with you, why you didn't do this, right? So it's really trying to come from a place of concern and perspective for the particular topic at hand. If they bring that back up again, say, yes, I understand what you're talking. We're going to acknowledge it. We're going to accept. I understand that you're upset about this other situation as well. Let's focus on this particular one first. We're going to assess this situation and see what kind of assistance I can provide you to make sure that this gets done. And then we're going to take some action, right? So whether that's you understanding what actions you need to take, and them understanding what actions they need to take. So does that help, Jesse? Yes, close topic, but not specific instance. Right. And then whatever subject that they did bring up that you said, okay, now we're going to deal with that. So it's like, okay, now you bring up this other one. It's like, okay, I understand that you're really upset about this particular thing that I didn't do over here. I'm going to accept that you're feeling this way. Can you tell me more about what was going on for you there? How were you feeling? What was going on? Because it's an emotional thing, so it's not going to be logical. So if you come at it from trying to solve it from a logical perspective, while the emotions are still high, then nothing's going to get resolved, right? It's just going to be escalated emotions. So we need to be able to bring those emotions down so that the person feels supported, they feel loved, they feel heard, they feel understood. That is the goal, to get those emotions down. Once those emotions are calm and that person feels supported, now we can start dealing with logical side, right? But until you deal with those emotions, nothing productive is going to happen. It's just going to be a power struggle, a tug of war of, and maybe it doesn't come up. Maybe you win that argument and they're like, well, fine, I'll go do that, right? That will come back and will bite you, right? It doesn't always work, but I try. Yeah, it's helpful to hear the steps that I try. Okay, good. Yeah, and I mean, we're all human, right? So sometimes what we need to understand is that if during this process you find yourself getting frustrated, you find yourself getting upset and irritated, know that those are the first signs of fear, right? So fight, flight, freeze, and fawn are the four stages of fear. The longer you stay in them, the further down the stages you'll go. So if you feel like you get your back up, you're defensive, right? So these are the first signs, right, of, sorry, you can't see that on TikTok there, of the bad attitude, right? There we go. So angry, fighting, defensive, uncooperative, cynical, pessimistic, constant complaining, never happy. So some of those are early warning signs before things bubble up to the surface, right? So if you see somebody as being a little bit more cynical than they normally would, or they're a little bit more pessimistic, talking to them before it becomes a huge blown up problem, saying, hey, you know what, I noticed that you were making some comments. Is everything okay with you? Like, that's not like you, right? You're not. We have to always assume that when people are in their happiest state, they are the most productive. They are willing to give everything they've got. When they feel, like, think of it, when you feel good and happy and you're excited about something, I don't know about you, but do you, like, especially if you're happy about the job that you're doing and you're happy with the people that you work with, you're happy with the environment, all of those kind of things. And like, think of your first day on the job, right? You're excited to be there. You're happy to be there. You're like, hey, whatever somebody tries to give you, you're like, sure, okay, yeah, I'll figure out how to do that. You're not like, well, that's not my friggin' job. I'm not doing it, right? That's a bad attitude. Bad attitudes have to develop over time, and a lot of the times the early warning signs are missed. So sometimes what you're dealing with is not the particular issue at hand. You're dealing with an accumulation of problems that were not resolved, emotions that were not dealt with, and somebody else was dismissive towards those. Or maybe we were, right? So we have to understand where is the true root cause of the problem, and being able, sometimes you have to peel that off in layers depending on how long that has been building up. So guys, I hope this was helpful for you. If you're jumping in halfway through, I do upload the live trainings on my YouTube channel. Please go check that out at Coach Tina B 125, and you'll see the replays and the training. I notice some people have a bad attitude because they do not have positive self-esteem. Exactly, 100% right. And the last thing that we want to do with somebody who is suffering from bad positive or lacks positive self-esteem is to give them another piece of evidence of why they shouldn't feel good about themselves. We have the ability to heal and flip somebody even in a work environment. And in fact, I think it's more important because employees most of the time spend at least 40 hours a week. That's a third of their life at work, right? So, and if you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, that you spend more, okay? So being happy in the workplace is of paramount importance, okay? We spend so much time, and I think it is a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing, right? And if we can create a positive, happy work environment and everybody is on the same page working together, and you might have inherited somebody else's problems of, you know, maybe they had abuse in their past, maybe they had a bad negative work environment that they came from. If they are on your team, it is now your problem. Whether you inherited that team, and sometimes you don't get a choice, right? I've inherited teams and they have bad experiences, and having to go through and help them adjust with the situation of knowing that I am not their abusive last boss, that I am here to help them grow and I want what is best for them, right? Because I want what is best for the company as well. So it's not mutually exclusive. And to blame it on somebody else's problem, they are your problem. They are on your team, right? And for us as leaders to shirk that responsibility is not good. Now, obviously, we're not supposed to be therapists, but at the same time, when we have done our own inner work, we can't help but be compassionate with somebody else that is struggling with it, right? Um, Attitude is absolutely emotional, absolutely emotional. Think of it, right? Um, when you have a great attitude, tell me what your emotional state is. Love this. I love that. I've tried to do this. I know when I am happy, I want to give 110%. And I normally do that even when I'm not happy, but that is just my work ethic. But the times where I am not happy, where I don't feel valued, it is so much harder to do that. And maybe my 100% for those days where I don't feel valued, I don't feel acknowledged, I don't feel like the things that I do for the company matter, even though I'm still doing the right things, my performance is still lower than it could be. Okay. And it's not because I am consciously choosing to have a bad attitude. It's because I'm feeling a certain way. And whether that is somebody did something deliberately, because I've had people do things deliberately to me and it has no effect on me. Why? Because I'm internally happy at that moment. It's at the times where I am not feeling good. Maybe there were a few things. Maybe I had a fight with my spouse. Maybe I had a fight with a friend or a family member. Or, I am upset about something. Those emotions will cause all kinds of havoc in your business and all of the people that you're dealing with, even your customers that come in, when they've had a bad day, they come in, they might be screaming at your team for something, and it's not that team member's problem. They didn't create the problem, but they have to deal with it. That has an emotional impact on your team member. Reassuring them that they did a great job and that person was being difficult, but they handled it really well, can go a long way, right? But if they get punch after punch after punch, it is going to wear on them eventually, right? So, and if you never acknowledge that they handled things well or that they're doing a good job, then eventually they're like, why should I even care, right? Nobody cares about me. So we as leaders set that example and they will follow our lead. So if we show them that we don't care about them because we're too busy with our own stuff, and that trickles downhill, they're going to start to treat the customers like, well, I don't really care. I'm going to do the bare minimum and get by, right? I'll do exactly what I have to rather than going above and beyond to truly help that customer feel valued, feel like they've been properly served, right? And then that customer is going to have a happy experience, and that customer is going to go tell other people what a great experience that they had. They went in, they were in a bad mood, but they left the place and they were in a great mood because they felt heard, they felt understood. You acknowledged what was going on, you accepted that they had a problem, you assessed the situation of what's going on, you offered them assistance, and then you took action to correct it. The 5 A's, right? Acknowledge, accept, assess, assistance, and action. So, guys, we're going to wrap this up for tonight. Go to my YouTube channel, Coach Tina B 125. Check out the other videos that I have there. You'll hear how I merge the two of trauma-aware change management is basically what I help business owners with and help you deal with your emotions so that you can set a better example and help your team. And then there's this whole reciprocal well-being, and you guys are all much happier and much more productive. So guys, with that, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. We'll see you again. Bye.